Welcome back to the Capture Your Confidence podcast. We are here talking about the impact of social media on confidence and self-worth.
You know, this one feels close to home for me because these are two things that I focus a lot of attention on, right? Like
Yes.
I own a digital marketing agency where we build social media content. I run my businesses off of social. Obviously, it's clear that I'm passionate about confidence. Yes, I definitely see the fact that sometimes these things contradict each other. We're complicated beings, right?
Yeah, no, it's wild. And as we're recording this, I am in the middle of a detox, a fast of social media, if you will. And it's a really interesting time to be having this conversation for me.
So this is not your first time doing this. And I kind of want to first hear why you do it.
Yeah. So I started doing this, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago. And initially I did it out of like a feeling of overwhelm. Like I needed to turn something off and I didn't know what else to turn off. And this seemed like an easy way. And quite frankly, it seemed like an easy way that I actually thought was not going to move the needle. I thought it was just a thing that I could do and try. And, you know, who knew if it was going to really work. But immediately I felt better. And so then it's turned into a, you know, little bit more of an intentional, like if I feel the creep of the emotion, not so much I'm overwhelmed, I'm drowning, oh my goodness, but I just kind of feel the creep of the overwhelm coming on. It's more proactive, like, ooh, like this is something that I know works. Like maybe I can just delete social media.
So when you say you felt better, you're saying you felt less overwhelmed. Were there any other like feel better things that you noticed?
So less overwhelmed, less comparison, which for me is so fascinating because I don't consider myself a person that struggles with comparison, but it's embedded in all of us, I'm sure. And so feeling that benefit was like, oh, that's another reason why I like this.
Y'all, if somebody who is so well adjusted and has pretty high self-worth and literally does not compare herself to others, notices comparison creeping in, then there's really nothing you can do to avoid it. There is something called the social comparison theory, which basically just says that it is natural. It is a human, innate, natural thing to look at others and rank yourself up against where they are in their life, whether it's professional, personal, whatever that thing is. So that's a normal thing that happens, and you shouldn't feel bad about the fact that it happens, but you should also be aware when it does and start to think about, okay, how is this thing playing into it? And what boundaries do I need to put in place to minimize that? Because quite frankly, there's no getting away from it. And, you know, I think anybody who tries to act like they're going to ban social media, that's unrealistic, I think, in this day and age. And I mean, I don't want that because I think there are a lot of positive benefits to it too. But that being said, we can't ignore the fact that this is impacting people in a way that we haven't learned fast enough what the impacts are as the technology has evolved, right? So it's grown faster than we are able to keep up with the ramifications.
I agree.
So you do this fast. And you notice what things, like what outcomes happen because of it.
So I noticed more time. That is wild to me because I really am a person who had timers and it's not like hours and hours would go by. But it would fill in like small cracks of the day, right? Where I noticed now I have more time. I noticed that I have felt more intentional about keeping up with folks, right? Because you're not just seeing what's going on and assuming you know everything. And I have felt lighter.
You know, I'm really good at the boundary component of this from a time perspective and getting on with specific intention. But I will say there is something about the FOMO component. Like when you're in a season of your life where you're consuming a lot of content, there's this anxiety that you're going to forget or miss something, or like you almost get addicted to this idea that like I have to see what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
And it is nice I think the fast helps you just break that cycle of like, I don't need to know what everyone's doing. And if I care about what they're doing, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call them.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
That's lovely. Okay. So it created awareness for you and it also forced you to be more intentional.
Yes.
So I think the benefit here is like, if you feel like you're noticing some self-worth things and you suspect that social media might be a component of it, a detox is going to help solidify the awareness and help tell you whether or not that was contributing to it.
Yeah.
And also just help you reset and put some better boundaries in place. You know, you mentioned to me earlier when we were talking about this concept of like the question of, can I be the kind of person that spends 20 minutes on social media a day? And I was like, I don't have any doubt in my mind that you could be the kind of person that spent 20 minutes a day on social and had that strong boundary. But my question to you is, if you were that person, how would you feel after those 20 minutes?
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting. I think that, you know, would it be the same, but just on a smaller level? Like, would I still feel that same, you know, comparison and overwhelm? Or would I feel like, oh, I'm checking in with my friends. I kind of know what's going on now and I'm, you know, back to life as normal. You know, I don't know. I don't think it would solve what I'm looking for it to solve. Because I do think that the elimination, the benefits can outweigh some of the, you know, the benefits of being off can outweigh the benefits of being on.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So as someone who's in the industry, I'm not in a position to take time off of social the way that other people are. But I will say that I almost like mini detox or mini fast without people ever knowing. And so the rule is I will get on social media to create and to engage with my clients, but I will not consume social media content. And I have always been really good about being a low consumer of social content because of the volume of time I already have to spend on it. And I notice like it's so instinctual. Like you get on it and you immediately start scrolling. You're like, whoop, that's not what I got on here for. And so because of that, I've had to really work hard to train myself to not be that person and to say, I'm getting on to do this one thing. I'm getting on to send 5 messages. I'm getting on to save 5 audios. I'm getting on to create a reel, right? I'm not getting on to look and see what other people are doing. And I think the problem is that 99% of consumers of users of social content, they are getting on to consume. And so if that is a thing for you, like I'm speaking specifically to the people who need to market their businesses online or market themselves in their professional career and they need to get on social media to do that thing, you've got to figure out a way to stop consuming and to still show up and create in a way that feels healthy to you, because you can't stop the train that feeds the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because I'm around you enough to know that you very much are a like creation driven, you know, on that mission. But I'm wondering too, if because you're involved in it so much, like, does it lose the allure? Because it's your business. You know what I mean? You're in it for other people. You're creating their social media. It's not as enticing.
I will say there is an absolute correlation of like, when I think of social, I think of work. I don't think of veg. I don't think of unwind. I think of work. And because of that, I don't naturally go to my phone for social when I'm trying to sit down and kind of defrag my brain. Because when I open the app, immediately my juices are like work juices, ideas, thinking, right? So my brain, but the thing is, I don't think that's an innate thing to me. I have trained my brain to do that. Because it's like when you walk into the gym, you're thinking like, I'm lifting weights. Like, I feel the adrenaline moving through my body. When I open the app, I'm like, I'm getting creative and thinking of ideas, right?
So give us some tips. So is it reading for you, or what's your like unwind?
Oh, it's definitely reading for me. Sometimes it shows if there's a good show. I'm never the person who's just going to like sit down and be like, what are we watching? So there are like specific shows that I'll watch when they're on. And when I don't have a show on that I'm reading, I read 100 pages a day per minimum. I think I'm on my 128th book this year.
What?
Yeah. So I read a ton. And it's not all like great for you books. A lot of it's garbage. Total absolute filth. I want to be totally transparent and telling you, like, don't feel like I'm the most productive person in the world just because I'm not scrolling social. I definitely have my vices, babe. Not trying to act like I'm perfect. But, you know, my brain goes to something else when it's time for it to calm down, right? And, you know, the thing is too, because I'm really active on social media, I don't ever want my relationships, the people in my life, to feel like the only way they get me is through that thing that everybody else gets. And so again, that has forced me to be intentional with my relationships too, in terms of like connection and reaching out to people. But I don't know. I think it's just like, if you're noticing or if you have an inclination that it's becoming a problem for you, it probably is.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, there's so much data supporting this notion that social media can offer like a negative impact on your self-esteem. And, so this is stuff that has been studied.
For sure.
If you're feeling it, you're probably right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was Huffington Post that said 60% of people who leverage social media report a negative impact on their self-worth and their like mental health. So 60% of people who use social, it wasn't even like it was like an overarching generalist statement. Doesn't matter how you use it. And so for you to sit here and think that it's not negatively impacting you is foolish, but also for you to think, I'm going to live my life, and especially if you have kids, and this isn't going to be a part of it, I think is a foolish thought. So like, how can we figure out strategies to help us manage that? And how can we have the awareness and use detoxes and things like that to help us sort of rebalance like the fact that this is in our world and a part of our thing, but it doesn't get to affect our mental health and doesn't get to keep us from being our most confident selves.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing that it's part of the equation, right? Like it's part of the many things that go into creating your confidence and being on the confidence journey.
And just in the same way that we think about with our kiddos when they're like going through stuff at school and the kids are being mean to them, like that's unavoidable. When they're on a sports team and they, don't end up making first string and they're sitting on the bench, those things are unavoidable. I consider social to be another one of those unavoidable things that we now have in our life that we have to figure out how to navigate. And so it's better for us to model like a reasonable, here's how I'm handling this thing for our kiddos than it is for us to just be like, nope, we never do that thing.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that I can do that. Cooper and I, it's so funny. My son is like the most pragmatic person in the world. If I have my phone open and there's a video on, I told him he's not allowed to watch shorts. Okay. Cause it's bad for his brain development. And it's just, his brain can't handle that. Okay. And so he's like, well, why are you allowed to watch shorts and I'm not? And I'm like, well, first of all, two things are happening. Number one, I'm working right now. Like he literally will come to me in my office. Number one, I'm working. Number two, I'm creating the short. I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
And so number three, like when I'm done creating the short, I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to come and do something else with you that's not on a screen. Right. So just talking through it and modeling it.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think a lot of parents like feel this like, oh crap moment when they're scrolling on their phone and their kids call them out. And I mean, that doesn't feel good whenever your kids are like, hi, I'm right here. Pay attention to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another clue too. And just having really good boundaries around that so that they feel like they're not second to whatever's happening here.
Yes. Yeah. Good stuff. I like it. Okay. So we would love to hear from you. What impacts does social media have on your confidence? Have you tried a detox? What do you think?
And if you're struggling, what specifically do you feel like is coming up for you after you consume social content so that we can help come back and create some more episodes to really dive deeper in on that?
Yes. We will talk to you soon.
Bye, y'all.